Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica and our continuing series on a technicality where we kind of walk you guys through some more technical aspects of gaming. And one of the questions I've been getting constantly lately with my Unported playlist is how I make all these games work on my computer and what software I use. And I will walk you guys through that step by step, but first, if you could do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell. It takes a lot of time and energy to make each one of these videos, and I definitely appreciate it, but I am happy to help with all of this stuff. Right now what you're taking a look at is Supermodel. It's a Model 3 emulator, and the Model 3 arcade platform is one of my favorites, so that's why I show a lot of it on my channel. And the guys that coded this are just absolutely outstanding at making emulators. I've chatted with them, and they do an amazing job. But there's a rumor that Supermodel is tricky to use. I don't have that issue whatsoever, but I could see where there would be an issue. Once you download it, you have two executables, a 64-bit package or just an x86, and all you need to do is throw your ROMs wherever you would like them to be, because we're going to set a destination folder in the application. The reason that this program gets kind of said to be difficult is that normally you have to execute everything from the command line prompt. Now I grew up on DOS, so that makes perfect sense to me. But you don't need to deal with this because somebody made a graphical user interface to launch games from, which makes it click and it's running. It's the simplest thing ever. You'll see down here you can set your ROMs folder. It can be anywhere you want. And up here we have a graphics setting where you can select your resolution and you can force it to widescreen. It's a tiny bit glitchy, but it works really well, so I use it. And then you just have basic sound options. You have control input. I use an Xbox One pad, so I use X input. And you can even link systems across the board. But you find what game you're looking for, you double click it, and magically, Model 3 is going to be very shortly running on your computer. It is that simple. So I recommend that unless you absolutely need to use the command line prompt to put in some variable, you use the graphical user interface because it makes it insanely easy to run Model 3, a very complex board. And you will see here by forcing widescreen, we do get these little black bars because Sega masked those off to give a cinematic 16:9 look in the arcade when it was a 4:3 monitor. But as soon as the gameplay comes in, those bars are going to fade away and you're going to get great 16:9 gameplay, which I absolutely love for capturing. I think it looks good, it's great on a TV, and it just works for me. Now to get Supermodel, you just need to go over to the forums and register, and you can go to the Catwalk subsection and download the most current build. And then from there, if you need any technical support, there is another subforum to provide that to you. Now, if you do need help, you can certainly ask me, I'm happy to, but if any of you guys go over to this forum, please be nice. It's like I'm referring or sending you to them. I love helping people out. If people ask me things nicely, I'll go way out of my way to make things work for them, but sometimes people don't ask, they demand, and generally I don't actually answer those people. So, if you do need help and I can't provide it to you, go to the forums, just make sure you're nice. And you'll see here that you have that graphical user interface download as well. And like I said, that just keeps you out of the command line prompt. Now I grew up with DOS, so for me, it's relatively familiar. I can read what I need to do and get it done. But the graphical user interface just makes things so much easier. I don't even bother with anything as far as the command line prompt is concerned because it's just not as hard. But now moving on, we're taking a look at RetroArch here because I do show games from a lot of different platforms, and obviously this is kind of the leading emulation platform if you're going to be dealing with something. And the reason I emulate a lot of these games is because I can't buy everything. I need to preview it first. I love how they let you set your controls. This is so fully featured that you can do anything you want. And to capture from it's extremely easy too. But this is kind of my way to preview games that I might want to collect actual PCBs for, because some of them are multiple hundreds of dollars, and I just can't buy them all without seeing if I actually am interested or not. But RetroArch plays a huge component in me capturing all of the footage for Unported playlist, and you'll see here now I picked a ROM, and I have different emulators set up depending on what's going on. Sometimes Final Burn Alpha works better than MAME. Sometimes MAME is going to be your best option, and you can load those different cores in. You'll see here that we were able to load this game right into Final Burn Alpha, and it's now playing on my computer. No big deal, I've got control via my Xbox One controller. If the video was a little laggy, that's because I was capturing my screen with my non-game capture software to get the whole screen at once. And you'll see here, if I pick up another ROM, this one's going to work better in MAME. So I'm just going to launch MAME, and then suddenly, very slowly because of that capture software, these run at 60 frames a second. If I'm not using my screen capture software for editing, I'm playing a completely different game. I'm able to capture it, and I can play 3, 4, 5 games in a day and edit them and do voiceovers in one day, getting the entire series out to you guys. And what I use to capture so I get full 60 frames a second is I use Xbox Game Bar. I've tried a bunch of different options, and this just works the best for me. It always captures perfectly, it's always at 60 frames a second, the codec works well with DaVinci Resolve, and everything is just good. But RetroArch is going to be your best friend when it comes to emulating older arcade games, because all the different cores between main, final burn, everything like that you can see here with that full-size capture. It just works quickly, it's extremely user configurable, and it does everything I need it to. Including with the tab menu here, a lot of times I need to change the specific control, or I need to change the difficulty for capture because I don't want to spend all day long doing it. So MAME gives me that option. I can go into the service mode, I can toggle different dip switches, so I can change the difficulty so I can get more gameplay captured in a short amount of time versus banging my head and fighting against it. So Supermodel, amazing. RetroArch, Final Burn Alpha, and Main are going to cover you for like 99% of what you're playing. But for things like Naomi, Atomic Wave, we're going to use Demul or Demul, not sure how you pronounce it, and this is a much trickier program. I have multiple different revisions because some are more stable than others for certain games. But when you come in, you can configure your graphic settings, you can pick your resolutions, everything like that. It's pretty complex compared to some of the other programs we're working with, because we need to set in our plugin paths, our ROM and BIOS paths, and our NVRAM path. We have to tell Demul exactly where everything needs to be. And you can find tutorials on how that works, but this video just set the files. And then you need to put in all your different BIOS files so the game runs, as well as your ROM zip files so the game emulator has something to run. I can't tell you where to find the BIOS files, it's really easy if you know how to use Google, but once we've set those paths, all we need to do is come over here for Arcade Player 1 configuration, and I can configure the Xbox One controller I use right in the application. And then from there, all we need to do is select a BIOS. Each system has a different BIOS, and for Naomi, you can have it auto-select which one's going to work for the game. It will monitor it for you, and there's a ton of different Naomi BIOS files, but you can usually just find a pack. Find the game you want, click it, hit OK, and after a little screen bobble, you're going to be playing that game right on your screen. Now for Naomi, there's a caching system. The first time you play the game, you're going to get some random stutters. The second time you play the game, or that particular section of it, it's not going to stutter anymore so long as your system's powerful enough. So if you notice in Naomi stuff that you're getting a lot of stutters the first time you play the game, just close it and play it again, and those stutters should be almost 100% gone. I'm playing this in 60 frames a second. My timeline isn't at 60 frames as I'm mixing media, but once this actually shows on Unported playlist, or maybe it already has, I don't know my schedule off the top of my head, you'll see that I'm getting full 60 frames per second capture off Naomi 2 hardware. And this is great for me because setting these things up in my house is a pain. But something like Chase HQ or newer games, a lot of times they come as their own pre-packed executables because they are just Windows executable games that are just wrapped up in PC hardware in a cabinet. So sometimes you just download the individual release, and now all of a sudden we double click the executable and we're playing Chase HQ 2 on the PC. So basically how I do this is I juggle a lot of different programs: Supermodel, Demul, RetroArch, and then executables of Windows 10 games. It can be a little complicated, but if there's a particular game you really want to play and you can't figure out how to emulate it, leave me a comment in the section below. I'm happy to help. I love helping each and every one of you guys if you ask nicely. But that's it. And if you want to know where to get the ROMs, I can't tell you, but Google's going to be your friend. And like I said, if you go on into these forums I showed you and you ask for help, be a nice person because they always get way more help. Short of that, we'll be back on Sunday and Tuesday with more episodes, so we hope you enjoyed this. If you have any other questions on how we deal with Unported playlist, leave them below and I'll help you out in the comments. See you next time. Bye-bye.